We'll move on to the White House. This is part of the horrendous airlift from Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands of people poured into our country, totally unvetted and unchecked. We will fix it, but we'll never forget what crooked Joe Biden and his thugs did to our country, President Donald J. Trump. And here is the image that he speaks of. Absolutely, completely covered. Hundreds and hundreds of people packed into, I don't know what that is, but not too well knowledge on the cargo plane, C-130 or a what is it, C-17 or something like that. I'm honestly not familiar. I'm just taking a wild guess, to be honest. But yeah, man, hundreds of them per plane. And any of us who were following politics in the last several years, which I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you probably were, we remember this in 2021, to the point where they were hanging off the bottom of the plane and falling from the sky. That's how many they were packing into the plane. And the footage that they had on the ground was they were just bum rushing these planes. They were just pouring in, like basically full on running into it. So, and I'd have to look back at the footage again, but if memory serves, that they basically opened up the gates and it looked like just everyday people from just on the streets were just pouring in. That there was no formal lines. There was no one by one process of vetting. They weren't coming out of a building or anything. No, dude, they were just running straight for these cargo planes and they were piling into them and they flew them right over here. So if they did, if the Biden administration says that they did the vetting process over here stateside, so you mean to tell me that the ones who were not vetted, they put them on a plane and sent them back to Afghanistan? Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we really believe that. All right, House Foreign Affairs Committee majority. In a foreign affairs investigation into Biden administration's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan spanning from 2022 to 24, we identified gaping holes in vetting of Afghan nationals. Here we made specific note of systemic problems like Afghans being put on planes without a proof of ID or biometric screening and many other basic vetting protocols which were totally ignored. So let's see, consular challenges at HKIA. I'll just read the highlighted sections. I really wish they would have a source, at least like which department this came from. It says Consul General Howell, so maybe it came from the consulate, maybe. So consular challenges at HKIA, including lack of documentation and no data tracking system, resulted in flawed vetting processes that left thousands of evacuees in limbo after the NEO. Let's see. You know what? I'm just going to read the whole thing. A State Department employee told AAR interviews that the U.S. government had, quote, no idea if people being evacuated were threats, end quote. Another employee recounted a particularly troubling episode. Quote, one plane left, and as checks got done, a few people on the plane popped red, and the plane turned around and went back to Kabul, end quote. This apparently happened a second time, but the plane was permitted to leave Afghanistan and land in a third-party country. Consul General Howell's counterpart, Gene Akers, admitted, quote, we didn't have access to systems or databases, end quote, that were crucial to determining the eligibility of evacuees. Yeah, because the whole freaking city, the whole damn country was in chaos when that happened. Because Joe Biden fucked that up as spectacularly as he possibly could. Indeed, in August 22nd, 2021, Internal State Department memorandum alerted employees biometric screening was not available to vet evacuees at HKIA. The memo also exposed 5 cases of Afghans who presented U.S. passports that were not their own. U.S. Embassy Doha Ambassador Greta Holtz explained that a high number of Afghan evacuees landed in the country with no real identification. According to Ambassador Holtz, the State Department, quote, created these temporary passports, literally a piece of paper with a photo that was taken right then and there at the flight line. The ad hoc nature of the Biden-Harris administration's NEO was also evident in the failure by the State Department to maintain records of Afghan evacuees. And there you have it. So again, it's text. It's provided by the White House. So, or no, not the White House. My apologies. From the House Foreign Affairs Committee majority, which is an official government account. It's an official government profile, hence the gray badge. And just if you want, further verification, it's a verified account. This account is verified because it is a government or multilateral organization account. It's been verified since January of 2013. It's the official account for the House majority or the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. And the chairman is Rep. Brian Mast. So they're the ones that shared the documents. So, all right. Anyway, Regan Reese knew the State Department is ordering all its posts to stop processing and to refuse entry to all Afghan national visas according to an internal document obtained by the Daily Caller. This is an action request, paragraph 2, or please see paragraph 2. So action request posts were notified by email from the visa office on November 27th, 2025 that effective immediately, consular officers were instructed to refuse under 221G or any other applicable ineligibility of the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA, all otherwise eligible Afghan nationals using an Afghan passport to apply for a non-immigrant, or NIV, or immigrant, IV, visa. This action includes any such applicants for special immigrant visas, which include Afghan SIVs or SQs, SWs, SIs, SEs, and SS, and also SB1 visas for returning residents. This action is to ensure that such applications have undergone necessary security vetting and to validate screening protocols ensuring the applicant's identity and eligibility for a visa under U.S. law. Additional guidance will follow SEPTEL, SEPTEL, on updated enhanced vetting or screening measures that may be required for this purpose. And let's see, Reagan Reese is with the Daily Caller, right? Yeah, she's a White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. And move into Joe Kent. Vetting a foreigner in a war zone to determine if he will fight a common enemy is vastly different than vetting a foreigner to see if he is suitable to live in our country. That's a pretty good point. Yet under Biden, tens of thousands of Afghans were brought to America using the war zone vetting standard. This is why the D.C. attack happened. The solution is rounding up everyone Biden let in and deporting them immediately. So he's responding to NCTC Director Joe Kent. And let me pull up him real quick. So he's serving as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center under the leadership of President Trump. And he says, which, hold on, let me grab the timestamp. It was at 10:49 a.m. today. So it was just this morning. So he goes on to say the barbaric terrorist attack in Washington, D.C. by an Afghan terrorist has spurred righteous outrage over the Biden administration's policy of importing people hostile to our nation. It is true that the terrorist who conducted the attack in D.C. was vetted by the intelligence community. However, he was only vetted to serve as a soldier to fight against the Taliban, AQ, and ISIS in Afghanistan. He was not vetted for his suitability to come to America and live among us as a neighbor, or integrate into our communities, or eventually become an American citizen. During Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, his administration negligently used the vetting standard described above as the standard for being brought directly into the U.S., foregoing previous vetting standards applied to special immigrant visas and any common sense vetting or concern for Americans. As a result, over 85,000 Afghans, including individuals with backgrounds similar to this shooter, were rapidly admitted into our country without the rigorous vetting that has protected us in the past. And that's just Afghans. Broader immigration from Muslim-majority nations and regions surged with over 2 million individuals entering under Biden's term, often with minimal scrutiny amid record border crossings. This is a deadly combination. Incidents like this aren't isolated. They're the predictable outcome of prioritizing speed and volume over security. As we move forward, we must commit to a strengthened and comprehensive vetting and removal process to safeguard our homeland and ensure only those who truly align with American values are admitted to prevent future tragedies. So, prioritizing speed and volume over security, the speed and volume probably trying to jam as many hopeful future registered Democrats that they could possibly bring into the country, for instance, maybe. President Trump's directive to re-vet and expel those illegally admitted under Biden who flooded into our country to overwhelm our communities and drain our resources represents the bold, decisive leadership our nation desperately needed. Thank you, President Trump, for putting Americans first. The NCTC will assist our partners in federal, state, and local law enforcement with locating all of these individuals so they can be removed from our nation. We owe it to our fallen and to our children. Now is the time for action. Well, and I'm not sure if it's going to be ICE who's going to be involved with this, or border security, maybe all the above. Maybe all these agencies are going to be tasked with rounding up these individuals, and they'll be deporting them. I know that ICE is adding 10,000 more agents to the overall department, but the Department of Homeland Security, man, they got a ton of money. Let me just double check and see how much they got. They got a ton of money that they're going to be that they're going to have at their disposal. I think it starts next year. Okay, and with the magic of the pause button, I came up with the answer. Department of Homeland Security. So, how much did the Department of National Security receive in funding for next year? So, it looks like 63.6 billion was requested. House Appropriations Committee bill $66.36 billion in total discretionary allocation, including 3.29 billion for defense related, so on and so forth. Let's see, getting into FEMA and other things like that. Okay, so I asked more specifically, how much can be used for mass deportations? In short, $29.9 billion is allocated for ICE enforcement and deportation operations in fiscal year 2026. So that's only for next year. That's not a multi-year budget. That is only for fiscal year 2026, $29.9 billion. Now, I know this, I came up with this number. It's very, very crude. So, like, let's say that breaks down to $200,000 per agent. I know that there's a lot of overhead costs, there's a lot of equipment, there's vehicles, there's gas, there's flights, there's all kinds of things that factor into this $30 billion figure. So this number probably like a way out of whack probably, but if you broke that down for $200,000 or divided 30 billion by 200,000, assuming like each person on like each agent would be 200,000 in a salary, which they're not getting that, like maybe half at the most. So, you know, like assuming like the rest would be for overhead costs, equipment, things like that. I mean, that would break down to almost 150,000 agents. But as far as I know, they've got 10,000 in currently, and they're going through the hiring process for 10,000 more. All right, another pause button moment. So how many ICE agents are there? How many are they hiring? How many can they hire in the future with the $29.9 billion budget? So there's roughly 6,000 deportation officers, which is in the ERO division. Total ICE workforce is 20,000, including 7,000 HSI special agents. So they're planned for hiring 2,500. So maybe, okay, here we go. So it's part of the 10,000 total over the next 4 years with via an $8 billion allocation in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I know that over 200,000 people have applied for those positions. And the future with the $29.9 billion supports up to 10,000 additional agents by 2029 and 800,000 per agent, included training and bonuses, potentially doubling ERO to 16,000. Hiring challenges may limit to 7,000 to 8,000. Look, hiring those agents by the year 2029, I see that as being potentially problematic unless it's codified by Congress, because if it's all done by executive order, then God forbid, 2028 swings to the left, then whoever incoming president comes in, then they'll just, by the stroke of a pen, just eliminate all those positions. So, it would almost be all for nothing unless they really try to work in these 10,000 agents as soon as possible. I figured they would have all 10,000 hired like within 6 months or so. Like, get them all trained, get them all hired at once, man. Let's get this going, man. You got to operate as if time is limited. There's no guarantee that JD Vance, for example, is going to win 2028. I mean, we could be quite hopeful, keep the glass half full, but there's no guarantee for that. But anyway, it's still good news. I mean, they are hiring a lot of additional people, and they're going to need every single person that they could possibly get, because now Trump is calling for every third world citizen who's in our country to be deported, especially those who are a net burden on our taxpayer. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see how that plays out. I'm sure there's going to be more to come with regard to that. All right, so breaking 911 reporter, why do you blame the Biden administration? Well, the president, because they let him. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came in on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here. Let's hear what Trump has to say in addition to that.
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here. And you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person.
Oh my God, dude, Trump is losing his fucking patience. And for good reason, man. For this Afghani national, like, we took him in, set him up with an apartment, which is he paying for it, or the taxpayers paying? Probably the taxpayers are really paying for it, to be honest. But with all of that just happened, and he has every right to be pissed off, and I'm sure he's pretty much gotten a short fuse at this point. I mean, imagine going through 10 years of the ruthless fake news mainstream media just constantly going at you day after day after day. So he can have a short fuse every now and again.
There's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in.
Ridiculous.
And they were unvetted. They were unchecked. There were many of them. And they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look,
and look, this is, and I know that Trump is going to be advocating even harder for nuking the filibuster, because if they nuke the filibuster, and if Republicans play ball, if they stay unified in this effort, they've already got the majority in the House. Now, I don't know if every Republican in the House, because it's a razor slim majority, I don't know if every single one of them will be fully on board with mass deportations, despite the vast majority of Americans being completely on board with that. It's like 76% of Americans are on board with or in favor of mass deportations. They nuke the filibuster. They can run all of this through and get it codified into law, but they're not doing it. And that is, above all, what frustrates me the most about Republicans is just the lack of movement. It's always a lack of movement. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. Speed bumps for Democrats. That's usually all that freaking Republicans seem to be good for.
You see, there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation
southern
was
border
a mess.
floodgates.
It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go, we were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision, and we would have left from Bagram, and we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake. But they were incompetent, yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that foreign nationals who come over here, immigrate over here, have any right to our welfare system in any way, shape, or form. That just absolutely boggles my mind. And if anything happens to any other soldiers out there, if this was just one of a series by some terrorist organization, it is only going to embolden Americans just far more to not only just start voting more conservatively, but start insisting that they start mass deporting everybody. And look, the state of Florida, they've got what's called the wet foot, dry foot policy. I think that's still on the books. So if you're an immigrant, whether if you're, it might only pertain to Cuba, but I don't think it only pertains to Cuba. I think it pertains to any non-citizen of America. If they're in a boat or a raft or anything, if they can get their feet on the sand in the state of Florida, then then legally the state of Florida is required to allow them to stay. So anyway, again, that could be just pertaining to Cuba because of, like the embargo, the communist nation, how difficult it would probably be to deport them back to Cuba. Maybe that's the underlying reason. So, all right. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing from the New York Post. Top Trump intel official reveals D.C. terror suspect wasn't vetted for entry into the U.S. And I think we pretty much got that already. But anyway, I'll read through it, at least some of it. A top Trump administration intelligence official said Friday that the suspected Afghan terrorist who gunned down 2 National Guard service members was not vetted before being allowed to enter the U.S. in 2021. Yeah, we already did. We already got through all this. So Joe Ken, he was the director, or is the director of the National Counterterrorism Center at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He posted on X that the Biden administration was to blame for the lapse in vetting of Ramanullah Lockenwall, who was being charged with the killing of one of the troops. And the NCTC director said there were more than 2 million in total who entered from Muslim-majority nations and regions, surged often with minimal scrutiny amid record border crossings, including 85,000 Afghans who were rapidly admitted into our country without the rigorous vetting that has protected us in the past. So, all right. And I got one more from New York Post. Afghan terror suspect disappeared roughly 2 weeks before ambushing National Guard troops in D.C., says his neighbor. And the Afghan suspected terrorist, let's see, so Ramanullah Lockenwall lived a quiet life in Bellingham, Washington, but struggled to find work. Neighbor Mohammed Sherzard told the Associated Press. He was so quiet, and the kids were so polite. They were so playful, but we didn't see anything bad about him. He was looking okay, Sherzard said. He added that Lockenwall disappeared about 2 weeks ago, a handful of days before a federal prosecutor said he gunned down 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and left her fellow guardsman, Andrew Wolf, 24, critically wounded, just blocks from the White House. Definitely an earshot for sure. CNN also reported that a neighbor said Lockenwall had pulled a recent vanishing act from Bellingham, a scenic city on Bellingham Bay, roughly 90 miles north of Seattle. Lockenwall hadn't gone to his local mosque in more than 2 weeks. I didn't see him. He disappeared. The neighbor told CNN he was not coming. Somebody said he's sick. Someone else said he went somewhere. And there's a still image, which I don't believe that was Andrew. I believe he had already shot him. I saw this video, but I think it might be a little too spicy for YouTube, so I decided not to include it in this episode. But I did repost it, so there's a link to my X profile in the description below. It takes you directly there. So I know I posted that video. It was RT. RT got a hold of this. It's about 8 seconds. You don't see any, and there's nothing like you can see gunfire. I believe it was this individual who ran off camera. He jumped behind this facade, and he came back around, and he started shooting at him, and that's about all you see. You don't see anybody actually getting shot. You just hear the gunfire ringing out while the person filming's in a car driving by. Anyway, the neighbor who did not want to be identified lived in the same apartment complex as Lochinwall, who's shacked up with his wife and 5 children. They also said that 2 of Lochinwall's nephews lived with the family. Oh, great. So even more people lived in that house or in the apartment. It wasn't clear whether the nephews are related to him or his wife. Well, they're nephews. That would, by definition, make them relatives. However, one of Lochinwall's brothers, who was a platoon leader in the same elite CIA-backed Zero unit as the alleged gunman, also lives in the U.S. And on last night's Swamp episode, I went into detail about that Zero unit squad, or whatever you want to call them, of those Afghani soldiers. Anyway, Shirzad described Lochinwall as polite, quiet, and speaking very little English. He said other members of their shared mosque said Lochinwall had run into trouble finding work. Lochinwall had worked as a driver for Amazon Flex, delivering packages as an independent contractor starting in late July, but stopped delivering packages in August, a spokesperson for the mega company said. I don't know, maybe he was one of those problematic CDL drivers, even though he's not technically an illegal immigrant, right? Shirzad didn't return the post's request for further comment. Look, dude, there's a lot of manual labor jobs out there. Isn't California always complaining about that, how they don't have enough people picking fruit from the fields and things like that? Or, I'm sure that like a construction company could probably use a drywaller or something like that. Like the illegal immigrants, they line up out in front of Home Depot. They find work day after day. I don't know why he wouldn't be able to do that. Maybe he's just too good for just manual labor. I don't know. Okay, breaking 911, CNN. Afghans in America are now living in fear. Well, fancy that. Right. It's only 7 seconds in length, so we're just going to get just a real quick statement out of this.
All right, so to come for us, new fallout after the deadly attack in the nation's capital, why some Afghans in America are now living in fear.
Yeah, I actually should have done my due diligence and actually looked up that. I mean, obviously, they're leading into a full segment where they talk about that. I don't know why Breaking 911 only posted that quick little clip, but whatever. It's out there, though. It's out there. I guess just look up America living in fear. You know what? Maybe I'll just do it now. Well, as a matter of fact, it's not on YouTube, at least not what I found. CNN, Afghans living in fear. The same video we already watched. That's the only thing that's on here. There's only 3 other videos that are not related to today's segment on CNN. So I don't know if CNN may have just not posted it yet. I don't know. I guess maybe be on the lookout for that if you're interested enough. All right, U.S. Department of Labor, 4 years of unrestrained migration has had devastating consequences for the American worker. Wages dropped, jobs for native-born workers disappeared, and many Americans were robbed of their chance to achieve the American dream. Through tough America First leadership, the president is bringing this era of unrestrained migration to an end and fighting for the American people. And President Trump has another True Social post. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains in living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Okay. No, never mind. This was basically, quote unquote, part 2 of the statement that we already read earlier. My apologies. I thought this was a separate post that he had made earlier, but we already read this, going on about, the migration from the third world countries. He's going to pause that, giving America a chance to heal, as it were. All right, so Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, at the president's direction, we are working to cut off federal benefits to illegal aliens and preserve them for U.S. citizens. The U.S. Treasury announced it will issue proposed regulations clarifying that the refunded portions of certain individual income tax benefits are no longer available to illegal and other non-qualified aliens, covering the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Additional Child Tax Credit, the American Opportunity Tax Credit, and the Savers Match Credit. That is unbelievable that that's not already a law in the books, that if you're an illegal immigrant, you are not entitled to any tax benefits in any way, shape, or form. This is ridiculous, man. Donald J. Trump, and of course, it's the same statement as he issued last night. And we'll move to Amy Meck. Florida, wake up. You didn't take in refugees. You imported a long-term Islamization project. Florida is supposed to be a red state, a firewall, a stronghold for America. So explain this. In 2021, 2022, while Floridians were distracted, progressive Rep. Anna Eskamani, the same far-left activist who marches for abortion, fundraises for drag shows, and pushes every far-left cause imaginable, was central in helping bring Afghan refugees into Central Florida. She wasn't alone. CARE Florida, the state's most aggressive Islamic political machine, was right there with her, pushing resettlement plans, lining up local partners, and preparing the ground for a massive demographic shift. This is the red-green axis in action. Far-left progressives and Islamic networks teaming up to reshape a state they both want to control until they eventually fight each other for power. And Floridians never got a say. How bad was it? Anna Eskamani said it herself. Florida takes 5,000 plus refugees every year. Central Florida leaders were preparing housing supplies, translators, and airport welcoming teams. Groups were rushing to get federal contracts. Afghans could stay permanently under rushed visas. No one could even tell how many were coming. And remember, these were Afghan migrants from a collapsed state with no vettable documents, no verified identities, and no way to check for extremist ties. Yet your leaders imported them anyway, all while pretending Florida is quote-unquote secure. Do Floridians realize how many sleeper cells were imported? Florida's GOP is compromised. This is the same GOP-controlled legislature that unanimously passed a CARE-backed Muslim American Heritage Month, celebrated a community led by CARE, an organization repeatedly tied to extremists, refused to oppose the very forces openly working to Islamize Florida. Republicans had the votes. They had the power. They surrendered anyway. Why? Were they terrified of being called Islamophobic? And Anna Eskamani, always at the center. While the GOP hides under their desks, she pushes the agenda. Afghan resettlement, CARE partnerships, Islamic heritage normalization, red-green activism, and nonstop pressure to flip Florida. She is the Democrats' bridge to the Islamic political machine, and the GOP keeps letting her win. Florida, are you being softened for a demographic and political takeover? If a red state like Florida won't fight Islamic resettlement and won't stand up to CARE, what chance does the rest of America have? Well, that is quite concerning. I'm honestly not very knowledgeable about that, so I'm just going to have to take her word for it. But anyway, she tags in this video. It's about almost 2 minutes long from News 6.
The federal government is working on providing special visas for refugees resettling in the U.S.
What the federal government is doing is they have the special immigrant visa, or the SIV, and they
look who it is.
A Priority 2 visa, which is supposed to broaden the scope.
Pride flag and everything.
Every person in Afghanistan qualifies for an SIV.
American flag.
The special immigration visa was designed by the federal government to help Afghans who have collaborated with the U.S., a process that takes about 2 years, but advocates and some lawmakers are trying to speed up the application process for these visas to move people out more quickly before the deadline of August 31st. Once approved.
Well, you know, what's his name? Lockenwall, he helped the U.S. while he was in Afghanistan, and look what that got us.
They are allowed to stay in the U.S. permanently with their families.
What they're going to need is housing support. They're going to need supplies. We're going to need folks.
Yeah, for like 6 months or for like 3 months. You know, like back in the day, I'm sure in like the 1800s when the Irish came over and the Germans came over, the Italians came over, I'm sure that they weren't giving an unlimited amount of government resources for free housing and free food. No, they weren't. I'm almost positive that they weren't. They came here with whatever, a few dimes in their pocket, and they just had to make it work. They had to make it work one way or another, because if you can't speak the language, then I guess the most menial manual labor that you can possibly imagine is what you're going to have to start with, and you're going to have to learn the language along the way. Like I said, California, it sounds like they got plenty of positions opening up because they keep screaming and complaining about that.
At the airports and their different points of contact to our community. We're also
Why don't you open up your house, lady? How many refugees are you housing?
Representative Anna Skamani says,
well, I just don't have the room. I bet you got a backyard.
Organization in Central Florida that will aid
set up a couple of nice
housing
tents
and employment. Afghans being evacuated from Kabul who are not eligible for the special visas
that's so
could
inhumane.
Still qualify for U.S. refugee resettlement.
Okay.
Central Florida actually, at this time, doesn't have an affiliate organization that is contracted with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. There are groups who are seeking to
that's actually a
have
good
that
thing.
Contract. And so a lot of our efforts right now are kind of in advance of what we expect to be Afghan refugees coming to our community.
She says right now it's still unclear how many refugee families could arrive in Central Florida.
Florida receives upwards of 5,000 refugees every single year. We've already seen some news of Afghan refugees coming to Jacksonville. And Jacksonville does have local affiliate organizations that are contracted with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So in the case of Central Florida, it's a little more difficult to predict because we don't see a contract yet.
In Orlando, Karl.
Yeah, well, are Jacksonville residents, are they okay with that, though? I mean, they have a pretty high black population in the city of Jacksonville. Is everybody in Jacksonville aware that they're doing this? I have a feeling that virtually nobody is. I mean, like, I've been here for 2 decades, and I'm just now hearing about this.
Cardona, News 6.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, that's alarming. Anyway, here's another one. Alert, Florida, your GOP-controlled government sold you out to CARE and the Islamic supremacists. In a disgraceful act of bipartisan betrayal, Florida's Republican-led legislature unanimously passed a CARE-endorsed resolution declaring May 2025 a Muslim America Heritage Month. Not one GOP leader stood up. This was a Hamas victory, not a heritage celebration. Glorifies radicals like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Keith Ellison. It legitimizes terror-linked CARE. It opens the floodgates for Sharia-driven demands. Florida GOP leaders Ben Albritton and Daniel Perez had the power to stop it and chose silence. They handed the keys of your state to the same political forces that want to erase your rights, rewrite your history, and dominate your institutions. This is how Islamization happens, state by state, resolution by resolution, betrayal by betrayal. Florida is not immune, Texas wasn't either, and the rest of America is next. And let's not forget that cringeworthy propaganda video Rep. Carlos Guillermo Smith made, beaming with pride alongside Terror-Tide CARE, the very group whose ideology would have him stoned or thrown off a roof. Read my full report here. I mean, I'll link it. I'll link the report. But they've got about a 2.5-minute video.
So it looks like what we have here is Senate Resolution 1384, a resolution from the Florida Senate. I won't read it all, but there are some really important points in here I want to share. A resolution recognizing May 2025 as Muslim American Heritage Month in Florida and celebrating the heritage and culture of Muslim Americans in the state. Whereas Muslim immigration to the American colonies began with the arrival of indentured workers in the early years of this country's founding. And it goes on.
Yeah, except Florida wasn't owned by the United States the entire time. Florida was owned by 3 or 4 different countries at different times. I think it was starting with Spain. France owned Florida for a period of time.
To detail a very, very long history
of the contributions of
Florida Muslims to our great state. And it ends by saying, whereas the Senate wishes to recognize and celebrate the rich cultural heritage of Muslim Americans and their contributions to the state and the U.S., which is in keeping with the Senate's time-honored tradition of honoring the diversity of cultural backgrounds, which enriches the state and strengthens its social fabric. Now, therefore, be it resolved
if they
by
assimilate
the Senate of the state of Florida.
How does it enrich a state by importing third world immigrants, especially if they're unwilling to assimilate? How is that enriching, especially financially? How does that financially enrich a state other than importing no-skilled, low-pay workers, which is essentially indentured servitude, which is coincidentally what he just happened to say? Well, with indentured servitude early in Florida's history.
The Senate recognizes May 2025 as Muslim American Heritage Month in Florida and celebrates the heritage and culture of Muslim Americans in the state. So here we go. Wonderful.
Where are the men?
Also,
aren't the men in charge of the families in Muslim countries, Muslim families? I mean, isn't he supposed to be presenting all of this to the patriarchs of the family? I mean, what's going on here?
Signed by the Secretary of the Florida Senate and is signed by
these people even
the
really
Senate
Muslims?
President,
I'm even
Senator
questioning
Ben
that.
Albritton. Wonderful, wonderful. Here you go. Here you go. We have actually 2 copies of the resolution that we want to provide. There we are.
Thank you so much. We could not have done it without the both of you and your offices and staff support.
We're very proud to help elevate the Muslim American community here in Florida.
That's right. It's our honor. Congratulations.
Ron DeSantis, I got some questions.
Hi there, it's
What's going on here?
Anna V. Escamani, and I'm so excited to celebrate the diversity of our community here in Florida. Thanks to the support of Muslim American leaders here in the Sunshine State, myself and Senator Carlos Smith passed a resolution in addition to all the other amazing communities that are celebrated in May to also include a declaration for Muslim Heritage Month here in the state of Florida. And so we're really excited to celebrate the contributions of the Muslim American community.
All right. Well, there you have it. So I don't know if it was Ron DeSantis. I'm assuming that this was probably after 2018. But if not, we've had a Republican governor going all the way back to like, what, 2004? Maybe even before then. So, yeah. I got some concerns with that. That's for damn sure. Okay. Where were we? And, okay. I think I'm actually up more, correct? Yep, correct. Here we go. So from America, elected members of U.S. Congress won't even condemn chants of death to America. It's on Fox News. This is in Dearborn, Michigan, by the way.
Not a great look. The mayor condemned it. The White House condemned it. But what about Congresswoman?
Yeah, they condemn it, but what do they do about it? Absolutely nothing. We think that's bad. The end.
Rashida Tlaib. She reps Dearborn. Is she okay with her constituents chanting death to America?
Oh, yeah, she's all about it. She hates
Fox
America.
Business correspondent Hillary Vaughn asked her. Watch.
Congresswoman Tlaib.
She won't say anything.
I don't talk to Fox News.
At a rally in the district, people were chanting death to America. Do you condemn?
Talk to Fox News.
But do you condemn chants of death to America?
And the triggering.
I don't talk to people that use racist tropes.
Why can't you just say whether or not you condemn people chanting death to America? Why are you afraid to talk to Fox?
Fox News is not listen, using racist tropes towards my community.
You're scaring me.
Is what Fox News is about, and I don't talk to Fox News.
Is death to America racist?
Fox News.
Is chanting death to America racist?
I'm talking about your guys' racist tropes. You know, you guys know exactly what you do. I know
Told you she loved them saying death to America. She's all about it.
On your own self. You're not going to use me.
What an easy out, man. That's an easy out for her, isn't it? How dare she?
If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Check out The Swamp, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, with segments dropping on the daily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.